Hi everybody, Matt here from Matt Likes Comics. Before we get into today's topic, I want to say thank you very much to everybody who's been with me this whole time. I really appreciate it. I've had a very stressful off-camera time for a bit, so this world is my oyster, my escape, my wonderful place to be, and that's only possible because of everybody out there who takes the time to watch me and do all this stuff. Um, there's been a lot going on in my life, and I'm just glad that I have everybody out there that has been really supportive and really nice. And thank you very much, everybody, for just being there. Now, I was talking with my friend Ryan at Nefarious Comics, and I was mentioning that my 1978 video did extremely well, and that other people thought that I should continue doing these time capsule comic videos. And he said he agreed. He thought that was a good idea. So here I am with another one. Only this time, the year is 1969. 69 is a great year in comics. It's the last full year of the Silver Age. It was a time when comics were definitely changing because Marvel has finally had gotten in 1968 had finally gotten away from DC and their distribution deal. So they were in a situation where they could start publishing more than 8 titles a month, and their I guess you could say their production just went through the roof. The amount of Marvel titles that came out in 68 and 69 was crazy. But what's even cooler in 1969 was we were starting to see the beginnings of the Bronze Age horror, where, slightly started in 68, but in 69 started to really pick up a little bit and started to become big. We will get there, though. Let us begin. In 1969, if you were going to go to the movies, you could see movies like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Easy Rider, True Grit, and Midnight Cowboy. Midnight Cowboy being the first ever X-rated movie to win a major award. I believe it won an Oscar, and such. With many other movies out there, if you decided you didn't want to go to the movies and stay home, you had choices of shows like Bewitched, Hee Haw, Hogan's Heroes, the Spider-Man cartoon we all know that goes Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Made its debut in 1969, as did the series Room 222. Monty Python's Flying Circus made its debut on BBC, as well as Benny Hill. And 1969 was the last year that the original Star Trek was on television. So you had a lot to choose from. And in music notes in 69, the Beatles played their final ever concert on the rooftop on January 30th, 1969. Led Zeppelin's first album, Led Zeppelin 1, was released, as was Tommy by The Who. And let's see, Woodstock happened in 1969. And the first real signs that the Beatles were going to break up happened in August when John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band played in Toronto at one of the rock festivals there. Basically, and he did not play, with the exception of Your Blues, did not play a single Beatles song. Those were what was going on in pop culture in 69, but what was happening in comic books? Well, Chuck Rosansky from Mile High Comics got into selling comic books in 69, starting with his parents' basement and leading to the Mile High Comics that we know today. Kinney, who owned DC Comics, made an aggressive takeover of Warner Brothers Movie Inc., changing the company name to just Warner Brothers. That will be important later. In January of 69, Guardians of the Galaxy debuted in Marvel Superheroes 18. In February, Phantom Stranger makes his first Silver Age appearance in Showcase 80. And Flash Gordon moves to Charlton Comics in March. April 69 shows that the first issue of the Italian erotic series Lucretia by Renzo Barbieri is released. This becomes one of the biggest selling mini-series because it only went 6 issues, I believe. I saw 6, I saw 4, but I saw 6 more often than 4, so I'm going with 6. In Europe, it was one of the biggest selling miniseries ever in Europe, in European history, comic history. And also in April, Bernie Wrightson does his first professional work in House of Mystery 179 with DC. Then, of course, leading to May, where the command and lunar modules for Apollo 10, not the one that goes to the moon, this is the one read for Apollo 10 are named Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And the last issue of Not Brand Ek is published during this month. In June 69, in the magazine Topolino, which if you're not aware is a big Disney-based magazine out of Italy, Donald Duck becomes a masked Avenger for the first time, known as Papyrnik, and he makes many appearances over the next 20 years in Topolino as this character, Papyrnik. August 69 sees books by Marvel going up to 15 cents just after DC did it about 2 months before that. 2 months, 1 month before, it was probably about 6 weeks after DC did in August of 69. So the 12-cent book is no more. It is now 15 cents. And in September, Neil Adams changes Green Arrow's costume for the first time in Brave and the Bold 85. No longer was he in that gray. He had the full beard and the outfit that we know him best for in the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series. In October of 69, John Lennon, this isn't a comic one, but it does have comic things. John Lennon releases his album, The Wedding Album, which has a self-drawn 3-page comic included in it. That comic is worth a lot of money. $4,000 at last look, if you have the album and the comic together. Most copies of this album do not have the comic anymore, so finding that comic with the album is difficult to do. And then in November 69, Warner Brothers is confirmed as owner of DC Comics. Leading to December, when the Metal Men is suspended, they didn't quite cancel it, they just decided to suspend it, and it came back briefly during the DC explosion years of 76. But you could consider it canceled at the same time. And the newspaper strip Little Lulu is retired during December of 69 as well. The only famous real birth I found for 1969, I'm sure there are lots, but was of noted writer Greg Rucka, who's responsible for books such as No Man's Land, Infinite Crisis, and as writers. He's done a lot more, obviously, but those were the quick notes that I was taking from when I was making this video. However, there's a few more under the notable deaths in comics for that year. On January 7th in 1969, Earl Duvall passed away, responsible for Bucky Bug and Silly Symphonies in the original Walt Disney's Comics and Stories way back in the 40s and some of the 50s, followed on February 3rd by one of his contemporaries, Al Tapaparo, who also did Bucky, Silly Symphonies, as well as being the responsible for the Three Little Pigs and for a period of about 15 years, responsible for the Donald Duck newspaper strips. George Klein, Superman artist, passes away at the age of 53 on May 10th. July 5th, you had Guillermo de Vito, who was one of the most famous Argentinian artists at the time, who did everything from Good Girl to Horror in Argentina. He passed away after a car accident at age 54. July 24th, if you are a big DC Silver Age fan, this one's for you. Ira Schaap, famous letterer for all the ads, in-house ads, and the creator of the Superman logo that we're all familiar with, passed away natural causes at age of 80. And he's probably, as I said, if you are a Silver Age fan for DC, and if you've ever read Dial B for Blog, we all know what a big Ira Schaap fan he was. So those were the notable deaths that I had for 1969. New titles. From DC, you had Date with Debbie, From Beyond the Unknown, The Phantom Stranger, The Witching Hour. From Marvel, big debuts was Tower of Shadows and Chamber of Darkness. And from other companies, you had books like the Golden Comics Digest from Gold Key. And you get from Archie things like Everything's Archie made its debut, as did Archie's TV Laugh Out, based, of course, on the Rowan and Martin Laugh In series, which made its debut in 68, but the comic made its debut in 69. Books that were canceled included titles like Batlash, Beware the Creeper, The Secret Six over at DC, Not Brand Ek, and Doctor Strange at Marvel, and Thunder Agents was canceled over at Charlton Books. Now, there, of course, are many, many, many other books and stories from 1969. 69 was a big year for the comic industry. Such a big year that when I went through my comic books, I discovered that outside of the super people, I have lots of 1968, I have tons of 1970, and have almost no 69. For whatever reason. I do have a couple here that are not DC Super books, but the majority of books I found are from the Super family. And for that, I apologize only slightly, because up until recently, I wasn't buying books with their years in mind, and I will probably do a 69 supplementary video at some point with some other books when I will be actively looking for a few to add in a future one of these videos. So I am now going to show some books from 1969. Neil Adams was very prolific with DC at the time. He was doing covers on 11 different titles in 1969. I have a few of them here, including one that's signed. I'd like to point out, and of course, over at Marvel, 1969 was the last year Jack Kirby worked before moving to DC in early 1970, when his contract expired December 31st, 1969 with Marvel, and so. I do have one Kirby book here, but I have 68, 70s, like 1970, tons of Conan, just right off the bat for 1970. However, not much 69, but I will go with what I've got here, and I'll shut up. This is Superboy 157 from June. By the way, of course, I use cover dates for these, not release dates. It's just easier to try and remember if I'm looking for cover dates. This, of course, was still when the books were 12 cents, but by issue 160 of Superboy here, they were 15 cents. Neil Adams. Neil Adams. And this one here, Superboy 161, a Neil Adams cover that I managed to get signed. Why you would get rid of the super outfit to wear that sweater, I'll never know. But he does. This here is from September 1969. This is not a DC book. This is Boris Karloff's Tale of Mystery, number 27. And this is where I go, where I'm annoyed. I have literally the last 3 books of 68 for Boris Karloff and the first 4 books of 1970, but this is the only book I have in between. That's an example of what I'm talking about I have lots of. And here's another title where it's the same problem. This is Fantastic Four 83, which was February. And this is the only one from that year I have. I have 3 from 68 and 5 from 1970, but I only have the one from 69. Next up, January 69, Superman. A Legion of Superhero appearance. Brainiac 5 is involved in the story, and Mordru is the villain. What was cool about this was Mordru never appears in this book, but it's his first mention, and this is 1 month before Mordru makes his appearance. Sorry, that's not true. This was 2 months after Mordru made his first appearance in Adventure Comics. And there is a, follow-up story for it. This is Superman 214. This is February. And then this really cool one from May, just before the price went up. This is Superman 216. And then I have this really cool one of Superman 218. Neil Adams did the pencils. I'm not sure who did the inks. And the last Superman one that I'm going to show is from October 1969, and that is 220, which is a cool Flash and Superman cover. (1969) was a banner year for Adventure Comics because this is issue 380 from May, and this was the last. This has a double meaning. This was the last appearance of the Legion in Adventure Comics as the main feature, and it's also the last 12-cent issue. Because starting with issue through 81 in June, the price has gone to 15 cents, but Supergirl has taken over the book. And this is the first ever Supergirl solo story where she has her own book. And she teams up with Batgirl, so it's pretty cool. Here we have July's 382 and Adventure Comics. And then Adventure Comics 384, because this one is a minor key, because this is the first time in comics a character was introduced that was, back then they would have called it cross-dressing or transvestite, because the character wasn't transsexual, but the character was a female who dressed male. This is one of the first stories, to my knowledge. I haven't been able to find anything before this. I wanted to make sure before I said that I had done some research to make sure I wasn't off. If there is one that's earlier than this, please let me know. My 25 minutes of research didn't show any, so there may be. And yet another one in a number of many stories of this type. Kara gets a big sister in October's Adventure Comics 385. Then there is November 69 Adventure Comics 386, where she gets a monster who falls in love with her. This scene does not happen in the book, if I remember correctly. A similar type of scene, yes, but not here where he's revealing her identity in front of everybody. But it's really cool. This one is pretty cool. December of 1969. Now, there's a long running storyline about Lena Luthor, whose name is Thorol in these books, who's a friend of Supergirl's, but she's also the younger sister of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor's family being ashamed when Lex went to jail. They changed her name, moved away, and all that stuff. Well, in this issue, Lex escapes from jail, reveals himself to his nephew, Lena's son, and ends up, giving him superpowers or somehow, and he helps Uncle Lex because family helps each other. This is Adventure Comics, December 69, 387. I could have shown a lot more of the Superman family for 69, but I decided that this would be it because the video is getting up there in time and I didn't want to go too far. But if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe below. I promise the next year I pick, which will be in the 1980s, will not have as many super books and will actually have a more variety. But as I said, if I can pick up some of the, especially the horror ones from 69, I will be back with a small mini, here's an updated more 69 books at some point soon. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe below. I really appreciate it. And if you got nothing better to do, check out my friend Ryan's site at nefariouscomics.com. You may find something you like. And he's got an ever-changing inventory. So, and if you don't see it on the website, you can always give him a call. Thank you very much for joining me today. My name's Matt. I like comics, and I hope you do too. Bye, everybody.